Hello and welcome. Here are news stories making the rounds at this hour. After 10 days in space, astronauts returned to Earth. Prigozhin talks hard to Russia's elite and army. Suspected Chinese ship confiscated in Malaysia. NATO unveils Arctic drills, vows to secure Finland. On elections in the United States, DeSantis begins U.S. presidential campaign tour. A private space flight carrying a team of 2 Saudi and 2 American astronauts, including the first Arab woman sent into orbit, has landed safely in the Gulf of Mexico after a research mission on board the International Space Station, ISS. On Tuesday night, after a 12-hour re-entry flight after 10 days in orbit, the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule carrying the team descended into the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Panama City in Florida. The splashdown was carried live, presented by SpaceX and the company behind the mission, Axiom Space. The return to Earth ended the second space station mission, organized, equipped, and trained entirely at private expense by Axiom, a 7-year-old Houston-based venture headed by NASA's former ISS program manager. The Axiom 2 crew was led by retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson, 63, who holds the U.S. record for most times spent in orbit, with 665 days in space over 3 long-duration missions to the ISS, including 10 spacewalks. She now serves as Axiom's Director of Human Space Flight. That was a phenomenal ride. We really enjoyed all of it. Whitson radio to mission controllers moments after splashdown. AX-2's designated pilot was John Shofner, 67, an aviator, race car driver, and investor from Alaska. Rounding out the crew as mission specialists were the first 2 astronauts from Saudi Arabia to flight on board a private spacecraft, Ali Al-Khani, 31, a flight pilot for the Royal Saudi Air Force, and Rayana Barnawi, 34, a biomedical scientist in cancer stem cell research. Again, the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary force has blasted the Russian military and political elites following the drone attack on Moscow that wounded 2 people, destroyed property, and left some furious. The Kremlin had not better protected the capital city. In an expletive-drenched statement posted on Telegram by his press service on Tuesday, Yevgeny Prigozhin, whose mercenary fighters have played a major role in the war in Ukraine, blamed the drone attack on out-of-touch officials living in Moscow's affluent suburb of Rublievka. You, the Defense Ministry, have done nothing to launch an offensive, Prigozhin said in a statement. Focusing his rage on powerful residents of the upmarket Rublievka area in Moscow's western suburbs, Prigozhin spoke of the scum and swine who sat quietly while Moscow was attacked. On Tuesday, in a post on Telegram after the attack, Alexander Kinstein, a prominent member of Russia's parliament from the ruling United Russia bloc, said 3 of the 8 drones had been downed over 3 Rublievka villages, one of which is located just 10 minutes drive from Russian President Vladimir Putin's residence at Novo-Ogaryovo. Rublievka, a patchwork of elite-gated communities in the forest west of Moscow, which once boasted some of the world's highest real estate prices, is home to much of Russia's political, business, and cultural elites. Former President Dmitry Medvedev and Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin have been reported to own homes in Rublievka alongside several of Russia's richest business figures. Wagner boss Prigozhin, known for his blunt and often fat language, has continually cast Rublievka's residents as an out-of-touch elite insufficiently committed to the war in Ukraine, and has blamed the top brass for Russian failures on the battlefield. Russian military blogger Igor Girgin, whom a Dutch court found guilty of murder of 298 people who were killed when flight MH17 was shot down over Russian-controlled eastern Ukraine in 2014, also criticized Rublievka residents on Tuesday. He also blamed Putin for continuing to state the war in Ukraine was a special military operation, despite drone attacks on the Russian capital, the Institute for Study of War, ISW, wrote on Wednesday. Following the drone attacks, Ramzan Kadyrov, the strongman leader of the Russian province of Chechnya, urged the Kremlin to declare martial law nationwide and use all its resources in Ukraine to sweep away that terrorist gang. The The ISW, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank, said that Kadyrov also warned European countries over supplying Ukraine with weapons, stating that if they continue to supply Ukraine with weapons, they will not have the weapons needed to defend themselves when Russia knocks on their doors. Some Kremlin watchers noted that Putin's calm reaction to the drone attack contrasted starkly with angry statements from Russian hawks and appears to reflect his belief that the Russian public will not be unsettled by the attack. Putin said it was clear that Moscow's air defenses needed to be improved against what he described as Ukrainian terrorism. Now, Malaysian authorities have seized a Chinese registered dredger alleged of looting the wreckers of British warships that sunk off the east coast of the peninsula during World War II. The Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency said in a statement on Facebook on Tuesday, the Fozu registered Chung Hong 68 was seized off the coast of the Malaysian state of Johor on May 28th. In a joint operation with police, officers found 100 unexploded artillery shells on board. Photos released by the agency showed piles of rusted metal on boat's deck as well as cranes and cutting equipment. Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency does not rule out the possibility that this vessel is involved in the theft of all British warship wrecks, the statement said. The HMS Repulse and HMS Prince of Wales sank in the South China Sea after being attacked by Japanese fighter aircraft in December 1941. Nearly 850 sailors were killed in one of the worst disasters in British naval history. The wrecks are designated war graves and are not supposed to be disturbed. We are distressed and concerned at the apparent vandalism for personal profit, Dominic Dweddell, the Director General of the National Museum of the Royal Navy, said in a statement after Malaysia media tipped off by local fishermen reported suspicious activity around the wrecks. The Chuan Hong was initially detained for anchoring without a permit. Its crew of 32, including the 21 Chinese nationals, 10 Bangladeshis, and a Malaysian, were being questioned, officials said. In Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said, according to a report, that the government was aware of the case. The Chinese embassy in Kuala Lumpur was in touch with the Malaysian authorities and had asked them to handle the case justly in accordance with law, she said, adding that Chinese citizens' security and lawful rights and interests must also be protected. The two British shipwrecks have been targeted previously by illegal salvage teams. NATO countries have launched Arctic military exercises with a promise to defend their latest member, Finland, which is hosting its first joint training since becoming part of the Western Alliance in April. Closely 1,000 allied forces from Norway, the United Kingdom and the United States, as well as NATO applicant Sweden, joined. Approximately 6,500 Finnish troops and some 1,000 vehicles for exercises this week, which mark Finland's biggest modern-time land force drill above the Arctic Circle. Overseeing NATO drills just a 2-hour drive from the Russian border at one of Europe's largest artillery training grounds in Rovajärvi, northern Finland, U.S. Army Major General Grigory Anderson from the 10th Mountain Division said his country stood ready to defend Finland. We are here, we are committed. The U.S. Army is here training with our newest NATO ally to build that capability to help defend Finland if anything happened, Anderson said on Tuesday. According to NATO Air Command, some 150 aircraft from 14 NATO members and partner countries are also participating in Arctic Challenge 2023 exercises. The addition of Finland to the NATO bloc has doubled the length of the border the military alliance shares with Russia amidst rising tensions between Moscow and the West following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. It's of no question at all. We have prepared plans on what to do if we are to be part of the defense of Finland, said Major General Carl Engelbrektsson, commander of the Swedish Land Forces. Sweden is Finland's closest military partner, and it was Russia's invasion of Ukraine that convinced Sweden and Finland last year to ditch long-held policies of military non-alignment and seek the security of NATO's collective defense commitment. Finland officially joined NATO on April 4th, drawing a threat from Moscow of countermeasures. Sweden hopes to be a NATO member by the time of the Alliance's summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, in July. Sweden has been what NATO describes as an official invitee since 2022, which allows attendance at meetings and the coordinating of activities with other NATO allies. Full membership will take place once all NATO allies have ratified Sweden's accession application, the bloc has said. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg voiced guarded optimism on Tuesday that Sweden's accession by the July 11-12 NATO summit was within reach. On elections in the United States, Ron DeSantis has unveiled a multi-state campaign blitz in Iowa, where he makes his first campaign tour stop since announcing his candidacy for the 2024 United States presidential race. The Florida governor addressed closely 500 people assembled at a suburban Des Moines church on Tuesday in his opening appearance of a three-state tour with 12 stops scheduled over 4 days. DeSantis, seen as the chief Republican rival to ex-President Donald Trump, travels to early primary states New Hampshire and South Carolina later in the week. The appearance comes 6 days after a stumbling online campaign announcement that raised questions about his readiness for the national stage. Beyond the glitchy launch, DeSantis opens his campaign looking up at Trump in the polls while facing persistent questions about his ability to connect with the voters in person. On Tuesday evening, DeSantis' stop at Eternity Church in Clive is a conspicuous approval to the evangelical Christians who will outsize influence in Iowa's Republican presidential caucuses. His visit will give voters an opportunity to meet with new candidates, just as he has been stepping up his criticism of Trump. Bernie Hayes, the Republican chair in Linn County, where DeSantis plans to wrap up his Iowa jaunt on Wednesday, said he's got a big hill to climb, and I think everybody will agree with that, to be able to convince people that he can overcome Trump, that he can do a job as good as, if not better than Trump. U.S. politics, Canada's multiculturalism, South America's geopolitical rise will bring you to stories that matter. DeSantis has been assailed by Trump for months, including a new round of attacks this week. Trump's newest shots aim on DeSantis' leadership as Florida governor. During the pandemic, the former president wrote on his social media platform that Florida was the third worst state in deaths by COVID. Meanwhile, a pro-Trump Super Political Action Committee, PAC, continued to run ads this week on Iowa television, accusing DeSantis of wanting to raise taxes, a charge DeSantis has denied. Kim Risberg of the City of Dallas Center, Iowa, attended DeSantis' lunch with her husband. She voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, but said she is necessarily committed to him this time around. The couple wanted to attend because they are interested in DeSantis' platform. DeSantis is a least softer, the 59-year-old said, according to reports, and more appealing to the masses. Since Trump and DeSantis are competing for the same job, she understands it might be a bitter race, but Risberg added, at some point, I would like to see them on the same team. And in Africa, talking humanitarian crisis, wounded Sudanese flee to Chad. Wounded Sudanese who fled to eastern Chad due to the violent conflict in their country live under terrible conditions while trying to receive medical attention. Footages showed lots of displaced people sheltering under trees and injured people seeking treatment. Even when refugees manage to arrive in Chad, they are faced with a spillover of violence from the unstable border and during their search for safety. The United Nations Migration Agency said last week the fighting between Sudan's military and a powerful paramilitary force has displaced over 1.3 million people. The conflict has killed at least 863 civilians, including at least 190 children, and wounded more than 3,530 others, according to the most recent numbers from the Sudanese Doctors Syndicate, which mainly tracks civilian casualties. Egypt is hosting the biggest number of those who fled, with at least 132,360 people, followed by Chad with 80,000 and South Sudan with over 69,000, the agency added. I'll bring you more stories after this time out. Stay with us. You're welcome back. These are more stories coming from Nigeria. Subsidy removal stokes increase in pump price. On Monday, fuel queues resurfaced across the country and grew longer yesterday as panic buying by motorists and hoarding by marketers shot the price of petrol as high as 600 naira per litre. The development followed anxiety created by the removal of subsidies as announced by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the day of his inauguration. Tinubu had shortly after his inauguration as the 16th President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on Monday announced that subsidy on petroleum products was gone for good. He stated, and I quote, "Subsidy is gone. We shall instead rechannel the funds into better investment in public infrastructure, education, healthcare and jobs that will materially improve the lives of millions." According to the report, the queues began mounting immediately after the president's pronouncement, with motorists campering to buy the products in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Abuja. As of Tuesday, while filling stations operated by major marketers and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, were selling between 194 naira and 195 naira per litre, other outlets operated by independent marketers dispensed the product as high as 600 naira per litre. The National Oil Company, while reacting to scarcity already being experienced, assured Nigerians of sufficient supply of the product. Kyari said the NNPCL is also monitoring all its distribution networks to ensure compliance. Tinubu Shetima begin work at the villa. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has started official duties at the presidential villa in Abuja, as well as the Vice President Kashim Shettima and some other prominent government officials, such as Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila and the Permanent Secretary of the State House, Tijani Umar, who received the president at the entrance to his office. The ex-Lagos Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, the Group Chief Executive Officer, GCEO of Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Mr. Dele Aleke and Honorable James Faleke were also included in the reception party. According to reports, President Tinubu will be meeting with the NNPCL boss Kyari and Emefiele on his arrival at the office, supposedly over the brewing fuel crunch. Still on the news, an ASU court approves no work, no pay policy. The National Industrial Court in Abuja has approved the no work, no pay rule by the federal government in the suit filed against the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. In a judgment delivered by Justice Benedict Kanyib, the president of the court said the court held that it was within the right of the federal government to withhold the salaries of workers who embark on industrial action. It held that no work, no pay rule enforced by the federal government against members of ASU who went on strike last year was legal. The court, however, held that it was a violation of university autonomy for the federal government to impose the integrated payroll and personal information system platform and members of ASU who reserve the right to decide how their salaries should be paid. The federal government had dragged ASU before the NIC over the demand of the union for the payment of their salaries from February 14 to October 7, 2022, when the strike was called off. ASU had insisted on getting salaries for all the months they were on strike, but the federal government under the past Muhammadu Buhari-led administration refused and insisted on enforcing its no work, no pay policy against the lecturers. And finally on the news, Tinubu orders DSS to leave EFCC office instantly. President Bola Tinubu has demanded the immediate vacation of the Department of State Services DSS from the Office of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission EFCC in Ikoyi, Lagos. On Tuesday evening, he said there were issues between the two significant agencies of government. They will be resolved amicably. The president said this according to a statement by the State House. DSS on Tuesday morning reportedly laid siege on the premises of the EFCC in Lagos. However, DSS High Command said it did not barricade the entrance leading to EFCC zonal office in Lagos. Mr. Peter Afunaya, DSS spokesman, in a statement said the building occupied by the EFCC originally belongs to the secret police. It is not correct that the DSS barricaded EFCC from entering its office. The service is only occupying its own facility where it is carrying out its official and statutory responsibility, Afunaya said. The DSS spokesman said he will be surprised if the EFCC is contesting the ownership of the building. He explained that Awolowo Road was NSO headquarters. SSS/DSS started from there. It is a common knowledge. It is a historical fact. Check it out. There is no rivalry between the service and the EFCC over and about anything. Please do not create any imaginary one. They are great partners working for the good of the nation. Dismiss any falsehood of a fight. A recap of major stories says after 10 days in space, astronauts return to Earth. Prigozhin talks hard to Russia's elite and army. Suspected Chinese ship confiscated in Malaysia. NATO unveils Arctic drills, vows to secure Finland, and on elections in the U.S., DeSantis begins U.S. presidential campaign tour. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Lois Tureki.